What is up, y'all? Will here with Schedule Fly for another episode of Restaurant Owners Uncorked, brought to you by us here at Schedule Fly. Super simple web-based restaurant employee scheduling software backed by legendary customer service and all at a low price point. We've actually never raised our prices since 2007, which is probably crazy, but 30-day free trial, schedulefly.com. My personal cell phone number is on like 3 pages on the website. So if you need anything, call me. We'd love to have a chance to serve you if you're on pencil and paper or Excel, and we can make life a little easier. Or if you're on one of these other softwares backed by venture capital that keeps raising their prices, we're a perfect place for you to land. So thank you all for joining this next episode, getting close to episode 600 here of Restaurant Owners Uncorked. And this is like, what a special opportunity. What a great story we have to tell today. Greg, will you introduce yourself?
My name is Greg Dulan, and I own Dulan's on Crenshaw Soul Food Restaurant. We're a family business. We have 3 locations. I run the business with my brother and my brother Terry, and we're just carrying on the family legacy.
50 years in business this year, is that right?
We started with a little hamburger stand in 1975, so we're celebrating our 50th anniversary this year. I can't believe it.
Isn't that crazy? I love family businesses. I love your story. I love the type of, I'm from the South, so I love the type of food you serve. We'll get into that. And, the one question that I ask everybody that comes on this podcast, I actually already know the answer, but I'll let you get into it is, when did you first get into hospitality?
Well, I first got into hospitality probably at the age of about 13. It wasn't my choice. My parents opened a little hamburger stand, and my father believed in having his children learn the family business, and I'm the oldest. And so by virtue of the fact that I'm the oldest, I got drafted first. And so I started off peeling potatoes and chopping onions. Not the best job in a restaurant.
It's interesting because there's so many people that own restaurants that I've had on here that started at like around that age, whether it was as part of the family business or it was because they had to make money. They had to get a job. And barely anybody that I've talked to loved it then at that stage, at that age, as no teenager would. But there's something that stuck with everybody. And in your case, you had this unique situation where, you were working for your father, who was a man who clearly instilled great values in his children and believed in entrepreneurship and building a family business. So talk a little bit about, if you don't mind, his backstory and how he wound up serving what y'all serve now, as it says right there in the background, Southern soul food out there in Crenshaw.
Well, I'm going to go back a little bit further and to my great-grandfather, Benjamin Dulan, who participated in the Oklahoma land run in 1889 and staked a claim and built a family farm where he raised my grandfather. And then my father was raised on that farm. And so he grew up with the tradition of hard work, working on the farm, milking cows and all that stuff. I don't know anything about this stuff personally, thank God. But, he grew up in that tradition of hard work. And so it just carried over the spirit of entrepreneurship, coupled with the history of hard work, helped him when he started the little hamburger stand in Los Angeles. And he used to always say, son, you never get rich in America working on a job. Entrepreneurship is the vehicle for creating wealth in America. And that's something that he instilled in us at a very early age.
How did he go from Oklahoma to Los Angeles?
Well, he went from Oklahoma to Texas, where he was in the Army.
Okay.
Where I was born, El Paso, Texas. Met my mother, and then they got married and moved to Los Angeles in the 1950s. So, like a lot of folks during those times, they were looking for opportunity in other places. Some folks came out west, some went east. But my parents and other family members came out west to California, and they ended up in Los Angeles. And so, that's where we started.
Did he do something before? So they were there in the 50s and he started this and said, what was he doing prior to that?
So he started off he worked for the LA County as a social worker.
Okay.
And, this is where I got my spirit and desire to give back, because I used to see him do things. I used to see him deliver food to families, and he would take us with him. And I remember he was in an organization called the JCs. I don't know if they still exist, but they had an event and they had, like 2,000 sandwiches. And a large, 500 or 600 of the sandwiches weren't eaten. They were not consumed. And so he asked for the sandwiches. He loaded them in his car, and then we took them to a neighborhood in Los Angeles where we gave them away, and the people there were just really, really appreciative to have the donation. And I was there. I was a little kid watching this, and it sticks in my mind to this day. And that's just who he was. So that was one of the examples that I learned from him.
What a great confluence between, so you've got this, he clearly wanted to help people. He's a social worker. He's there to try to help people make their lives better. Realized at some point probably, okay, this is great. I love helping people, but this is not a way to create wealth for myself and for my family. And at some point took that leap, that risk, and it is a risk and it is a leap of faith to go, I'm going to hang a shingle out. And at first you started selling burgers, but there's so much about hospitality. This is why I love this industry so much, that is the marrying together of what you might do as a social worker and providing sustenance through food, which is you're helping your community. You're giving your community a place to come and to mourn, to celebrate, to be recognized, to be a recurring customer where you're known and you feel validated. And then restaurant people, particularly independent restaurant people, I believe are as meaningful in our communities. I say this, and some people kind of laugh, but I believe it. I think you're like in the same stratosphere as first responders because, big, like you had the fires out there, and I want to ask you about that. We had in Western North Carolina the flood back during the,
I saw that.
It was just devastating, right? But, of course, obviously your traditional first responders are there, but you know who's always there? Always. Pick an unfortunate disaster. People that own restaurants, mom and pop, small restaurant groups, they're the owners there, their teams there, they're giving away food, they're giving their time, they're donating, they're working 24 hours a day, they're trying to help their community because they care so much about the community. So I think it's an interesting dynamic that he started out in that world as a social worker, but clearly was able to feel some financial success, but also get back, I'm assuming, what he got out of being a social worker. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yes. And the restaurant industry is the industry of first opportunities and of second chances. And that's something that my father really personified. He used to hire a lot of young people from the neighborhood who, getting their first job working in the hamburger stand and later in the restaurants. But he also didn't shy away from hiring people who may have had a little bump in the road in their life, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And were trying to rebuild or remake themselves or to get past mistakes. And so, that's something that he did and he believes in, and that I do to this day. Restaurants are there when people are in need, which is why I love working with the organization that we work with, World Central Kitchen, who calls us or who has called us in when there have been, some of these unfortunate disasters, such as the fires and the coronavirus and things of that nature. And it's just something that we do as an industry. We just like giving. Um,
Yeah.
we like giving, we like helping people, we like providing jobs, and it's something that I really love to do.
So, um, your your father unfortunately passed in 2017, if I remember that
Right,
correctly. Okay.
right,
So now you and your brother run the
right,
business? Okay.
right,
Okay.
right. Yeah. And so I run the catering operation, the store that you see behind me, and then we have a food truck that we run. It's a labor of love. It's difficult. It's still challenges. We still face challenges every day, but I love doing it. I love getting up and coming to work every day. At this point, we have a long standing in the community. We're feeding our fourth generation of customer,
Mm.
and we're well known, and so it's still meaningful to serve the public every day. And then you mentioned my father, and one of the things that he was known for was getting out and talking to the customers. He didn't stay behind the scenes. He didn't stay locked up in the kitchen or in the office. He literally got out and he would walk into the restaurant and talk to the customers and welcome them personally. And he had a very personal touch. And that's something that I picked up from him. And I find that part of the business to be very rewarding.
Well, that's that authentic connection that has always made great restaurants and great family businesses endure it through different economic cycles, through different unplanned events like COVID. It's never easy, but that piece, I believe, I think it's kind of coming back, or at least maybe it's wishful thinking, but I'm curious as somebody who's in it every day, Greg. I feel like we've spent the last decade immersed in these devices we call our phones. We're on screens constantly. Um, we went through COVID and we became very disconnected from the human to human connection. There's a lot of technology now. People lean into a lot of technology, but I also see, I have three kids, 21, 18, and 15. And they're buying vinyl records. They're buying actual books. They're seeking something from the past that they just innately recognize is missing from today, which is that
Right.
everything is on the screen and everything is electronic, and they're looking for that tactile, genuine, authentic connection with something. And I think that for a decade, there was free money out there. There's been a lot of restaurant tech that's poured into the scene, and there's a need for it. But what will never go away, I think, is when human beings want connection, they want real, authentic engagement. They want to, and there's the universal need is to feel validated, to feel important.
Yeah.
And when your dad walked out there, and when you walk out there and you're the owner and you're stopping by and looking people in the eye and thanking them and asking how things are going, there's nothing that can replace that. And I feel like that the bar is so low these days, just our experience with businesses in general and customer service and call center, this, that, and the other, that I think people are starting to realize more and more, like we need that. Like, it's important to us and it matters a lot. And so I applaud you for doing that, because I think it's something that may have been a little bit lost over the last decade or so, and hopefully is making its way back, which is what y'all are doing every day.
I think the word is connection, and
Yep.
people love the connection and to feel validated. Everything you've said is right on target. And I can't tell you of the reaction that I see when I walk to the table and introduce myself as the owner and
Yeah.
ask the customers how they're doing, how they enjoy their meal. And then I take it a step further. If they're waiting for their meal, I'll grab them and take them from the table, and I'll take them on a tour, and I'll show them my outdoor event space and my front patio. And on occasion, I actually take people in the kitchen and let them see the kitchen, because we have this beautifully remodeled kitchen that I'm very proud of, and they just love it. The connection piece is so important for restaurants, especially independent restaurants. And it's not, and it doesn't cost you anything to do it. And it helps to build that overall experience, especially when you have visitors coming in from out of town. I had a group in from Rhode Island yesterday, and I did exactly what I'm describing to you now. I spent some time with them. Their two daughters are track athletes. One of them has the number one time in the state in the 400,
Oh, wow.
in the 400 meters. She's a top runner in the country. And I spent time with them, and those are memories that stick with people. They last. And when they get back to their respective cities, guess what? Guess what they do? When you go to Los Angeles, you got to go to Dulan's Soul Food Restaurant on Crenshaw and ask for Greg. He's my friend. I
There you
know
go.
him.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Amen.
it
That's the
works.
word of that's the word of mouth. You can't measure that. It's not something you can put on a spreadsheet, but boy, is it real and it matters. And
And I love it. That's the part of my business I love the most. I love interacting with the customers. I love interacting with my employees, and I just generally enjoy doing that.
so, okay, let's talk about the flip side of this coin. So it is a challenging business, and it's more challenging than ever. Everything that you buy now is more expensive than it was. Consumers are a little uncertain right now, tightening their wallets and things like that. What are the things that, and look, you said it, there's a challenge every day, and there's been a challenge every day running restaurants since restaurants have been around. It's every day could bring something that you have not planned for. Somebody quits mid shift, piece of equipment goes out. There's something that blocks traffic. They can't even get to your, whatever it is. Like there's always this stuff. And that's why I find like, well, let's put it this way. I've been doing this podcast for like, I don't know, like 12 years or something, right? Naively thought when I started this in my head, I was like, I'm going to interview all these great restaurant owners and learn all the tricks of the trade. And one day I'm going to own my own restaurant. It did not take me that long to realize, okay, all due respect to all of you that do what you do. I don't have it in me to do what you do. What I do is it made me really respect what you do. I don't have it in me to deal with like so many different things all the time. But that's the thing. So much of it's in your DNA, Greg. I mean, I can hear it just talking to you. And it was in your father's DNA, and I'm sure it's in your brother's DNA. So it's like, these challenges, they're not easy. If it were easy, everybody would do it right. They're hard, but you've got something in there that's like a foundation that I would imagine you go back to where you find your joy that helps you get through this stuff. What are the things right now that you're looking at as an owner and you're going, man, these are some interesting challenges? And I ask this question because, the people that listen to this podcast, there's two general audiences, right? One, there are people that want to start a restaurant in one day and they're doing like, they're listening to people that do it and trying to absorb what they can. Or there's other owners around the country who use this for therapy because they want to know, they got their sleeves rolled up and their head down and they're working every day and working hard and they're dealing with these problems and they're like, God, what in the world? How do I? And then they hear other people with the same problems and they tell me, they're like, it's like therapy. So I'm curious, like what's on your mind right now? Like the real, like gritty challenges that you're having to, muscle through.
Well, I know there'll be a lot of restaurant owners who are going to listen to what I'm going to say, and they're going to say, "Yep, that's right. That's right. I'm dealing with the same thing." But, the restaurant industry is under a lot of pressure, specifically as it relates to the cost of operating a restaurant. Our inventory and supplies, the prices just keep creeping up. Here in California, we're under a lot of pressure with wage inflation and having to deal with that. And then you have a ceiling because you can only charge so much for your product. And so the margins that we are used to are getting squeezed. And so one of the ways that we deal with that is we try to create different revenue streams. As an example, we have a food truck that we utilize that serves the same food that we sell in the restaurant. And we do special events with the food truck. The last Super Bowl that was here in Los Angeles a couple of years ago, the truck was actually hired by the NFL Players Association. They actually rewrapped the truck with their logo, and they paid us a lot of money to utilize the truck for a week. That's just an example of being creative and using the assets that you have. In my restaurant, I redesigned it just recently remodeled it. And when I built the kitchen, I built two kitchens. And so I have a main kitchen that services my dine-in clientele. But I also have what I call an auxiliary or a takeout or a kitchen that handles my takeout business. It handles my catering. It stays open late night after the main restaurant closes. It opens early. If I want to do an early event, I can serve different types of cuisines out of that restaurant. Same building, but two kitchens side by side. I'm able to utilize the same labor pool, and it gives me a more dynamic space in terms of how we're able to serve the public. And then we have a catering division that also represents a different revenue stream, a little higher margins, so to speak. And we just try to, utilize the different things that we have to offer to try to figure out ways. If this is down, then maybe this is up. If the restaurant is down, then maybe the food truck has an engagement. For example, we were booked at the Natural History Museum for a 6-month stint. We were there 7 days a week for 6 months at the museum, which brought in revenue and, different things like that. We'll be going to talk to Disneyland next week about a long-term engagement at their location out in Anaheim. And so, you just try to be creative, have multiple revenue streams, and have different connections in different segments of the society. That's very key. Education, government, sporting. We sort of have connections in all these different areas of American society, and we're able to garner business from each of those. And so we might be doing an event for teachers. We might be at USC or UCLA. I mentioned World Central Kitchen, and we just did 30,000 meals for fire victims in Altadena. And so you do what you can and to try to multiply, duplicate, and bring in business.
How do you source these opportunities? Is this you going out, getting dialed in with the NFL, Disneyland? Do they approach you? Is it both? Like, that's a really creative way to go out and try to find new revenue streams, or is it just trial and error and hustle and just being creative?
So I have a good business partner. Her name is Kim Prince, and her family is actually the Prince family out of Nashville, Tennessee. They own Princess Hot Chicken in Nashville. Very famous family, and the chicken is amazing. But she is very good at sourcing a lot of these opportunities. And then a lot of the opportunities just come to us because we've been around for so long.
Yeah.
Name is out there, and people recommend us, quite frankly. And again, that's where all those connections and ties to the different segments of society come in handy in a big way. And so, it's the decades that we've been in business, always trying to make connections with people and organizations, always trying to do a good job and do an excellent job and to build a good, long-standing, upstanding reputation of honesty, of good service, of integrity, and of serving delicious food. All of those things come to bear as it relates to us being able to build and take advantage of different opportunities that come our way.
Gotcha. Okay. I think it was it 2024, you began using a delivery service, an exclusive contract. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, so DoorDash is the delivery service we're referring to, and they approached me probably in 2023 during my construction phase. My restaurant was under construction and it was not complete. And so, but I was talking to DoorDash and I took them on a tour of the construction site. I took one of the executives or a couple of executives of the tour of the construction site. And I said, this is my second kitchen. This is going to be where I serve my DoorDash meals from. And they were very impressed because apparently they hadn't seen a lot of that, of forward planning like that. And so, but it took a while, but we finally got the relationship going in 2024. And I got to tell you, I was, like a lot of restaurants, a little leery about working with third-party delivery companies. A lot of us felt that their fees were, I'll use the word ridiculous, but they were very high. that's when everything was new, and there has been a meeting of the minds as it relates to third party and restaurants now. We've sort of met in the middle, and the third party delivery companies have changed their business model to one where they seek out exclusive relationships with restaurants that I guess they consider key restaurants. And I'm finding it to be a win-win situation. It's win-win for me because my relationship with DoorDash has increased my business volume by 25%. But more than that, they operate as a partner in that because of the relationship that we have, they've invested marketing dollars. They have helped me with promotion and media, which is such as what we're doing right now. And we have a weekly call to discuss business improvement strategies and marketing strategies and growth strategies. And so it feels like a partnership. And it's something that's been very positive. And I'm very, very happy that I've headed in that direction.
Business.
Yeah, I was skeptical at first about doing an exclusive relationship. I thought I needed to have, 5 or 6 tablets, each of them ringing at the same time. But there are a lot of advantages to having an exclusive relationship. You're able to, negotiate your rates as it relates to commission rates. But the partnership with these companies is amazing. They provide expertise. And so I'm on the phone with experts all the time, and all we talk about is how to increase my business. They come out and visit. The brand of a DoorDash associated with my brand, it just gives us added exposure. And again, my business has increased by 25%. If you're loyal to them, they're loyal to me, is what I'm finding.
Yeah.
And it has been a win-win. It's been a win-win situation, 100% for me.
Tell me about Crenshaw and what Crenshaw was like when you were growing up and what it's like now.
Oh boy. Well, when I was growing up, Crenshaw was a wonderful place, great restaurants and car dealerships and it was just a thriving community. Local, grew up in a local YMCA, Crenshaw YMCA and things like that. And then the neighborhood went through a period of decline. The auto dealerships left, a lot of the businesses closed up. And then there was a period where there was a lot of violence and things like that, which was a rough period of time and happened to be during my teenage years, unfortunately. But now we are, and when I say we, I'm talking about the Crenshaw community, is going through another renaissance. I happen to be located in the Destination Crenshaw zone, which is a $100 million outdoor art expression development that highlights and features African-American culture and art. And I'm the soul food restaurant in that zone. And so the Crenshaw district is going through a great renaissance and rebuilding and restructuring. There's a lot of construction within a half mile of my restaurant. There are approximately 800 apartment units under development as I sit here. And so those are my future customers. I can't wait for those units to get rented. Having been here, I opened in 1992. I've been able to witness all of these things. I don't know if you remember or recall the Rodney King riots.
Oh, yeah.
But my restaurant was getting off the ground when those riots and then a lot of fires occurred. And I saw buildings on fire that to this day have not been rebuilt, and they're near my location. And so I guess I'm old enough. I guess I'm old now, but I've been able to see the cycle of the community go from this, start over here, and then go over here, and now it's going back over here. And I've lived long enough to see that, and I'm in the same location, which is what happens when I bought the location. It sort of kept me here because I own the property, so I didn't move around, so I've stayed here. And so I'm actually old enough to have seen the community and the neighborhood do a full cycle. And now we're on the upswing again with beautiful apartments and parks and pocket parks being built. Sankofa Park is a beautiful park with big structures and statues. that's going to attract tourism to the neighborhood and to the community. Hopefully, they'll get hungry and come down to Dulan's Soul Food on Crenshaw. And it's I think I have a unique perspective because I've been here for so long. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, again, this is the value of a family business that's rooted in dedication to hard work, to the community. You have roots there, you're planted there, and none of those tough cycles are easy. You learn and grow, and there's well, let me ask you this. Do you listen to podcasts? Do you read books, or what do you do for education and learning outside of work?
I love podcasts. I love seminars. Um, Believe it or not, I learn a lot on YouTube. 15
Yep.
minutes here, 15 minutes there.
Yeah.
You can learn how to cook. You can learn how to run a restaurant. You can learn how to sew. You know how to fly a kite. It's all there. Um, and then I do a lot around the city of Los Angeles. And I serve on the state board of the California Restaurant Association. And so I'm always doing something somewhere, gaining as much knowledge as I can. I'll be speaking at Los Angeles Trade Tech's culinary school in a couple of weeks, speaking to the culinary students. And so, I'm always doing something to gain knowledge or maybe to share knowledge.
Yeah. Um, well, curious, what are some of the podcasts you enjoy?
Uh, my friend Brad Johnson has a podcast, and Brad, forgive me, I can't think of the name right now, but he was the former owner of Post and Beam Restaurant. So if you
Okay.
Google Brad Johnson, uh, in fact, I just appeared on his podcast recently, but it focuses on the restaurant industry like yours.
Yeah.
And so I highly recommend that you check it out because you'll get different perspectives on some of the same things that you're talking about.
Yeah.
But that's one of the podcasts that is probably the food podcast that I listen to. And then then I like books on tapes and things like that. Usually books that talk about positive thinking and growth and longevity and things of that nature. I was just listening to a podcast about how we can lengthen our lives through exercise and proper diet and things like that, strength training and things like that, which are things that I try to do. And as a restaurant owner, you have to do. You have to
Yeah.
you have to stay physically fit because it's a physically demanding profession, and I love doing it anyway. So so it's something I would probably do anyway. So those are some of the things that I do.
Well, I'll tell you why I was asking those questions, and you just nailed it. Because one of the challenges I think in the restaurant business, because it's hard, it's a grind, it's a lot of hours. Sometimes it's late nights or early mornings or whatever. But there, you can get lost in just working in the business so much that you're not working on yourself. And if you're not working on yourself, you're going to have challenges. That's going to bleed into the business. The business will have challenges. You have to have a sustainable balance in your life, and through um, things outside of work, taking care of, your body, taking care of your mind, taking care of your soul. And, I always like to ask people how they accomplish that in this space, but I'm glad that you just nailed all the things that are just so important. You're always learning, you're giving back, the physical piece of it's important because nobody benefits if, you know, Greg doesn't take care of himself and doesn't, and winds up having some unfortunate thing happen, then, that's not good for the longevity of the business. It's good that you're finding that balance, but it's not easy to do either. It's a discipline.
It's a discipline. I just got back from going to the Final Four in San Antonio, Texas. And
Nice.
so I saw Florida beat Houston. But before that, I saw Houston beat Duke, which was
Yeah, that was amazing.
that was amazing. And then I got a chance to go to the Valero Open PGA golf tournament on Sunday. I'd never done that before. So you have to, take the time, to do things like that. And there was something else I was going to say that I forgot, but yeah, you got to do that for sure.
Tell me about, okay. I mean, I know all about Southern soul food, but tell me a little bit about your menu and what's some of your personal favorite items.
Oh boy, this now see, this is what I like to talk about. My grandmother in my restaurant, there's a picture of my grandmother, and at her feet are chickens. And I'm told she was trying to pick out the right chicken for that evening's family meal. As a child, I actually saw her plucking, plucking the feathers off of a chicken, which caused me not to eat chicken for about 5 years. But anyway,
That's not
uh,
yeah, not a fun thing to see.
yeah, not, I ran in the house. I was playing in Oklahoma. I ran in the house, and there she was in the kitchen. So I just kind of happened on that. But we do traditional Southern cooking Mississippi soul food. I'd like to say fried chicken, uh, baked chicken, smothered, a lot of smothered stuff, smothered pork chops, smothered chicken, short ribs of beef,
Mm,
uh, meatloaf. I'm a meatloaf person. I love meatloaf.
mm,
I can eat meatloaf almost every day. And then the traditional sides, the collard greens, black eyed peas, candied yams,
mm.
mac and cheese, corn, okra, and tomatoes, cornbread made from scratch. Everything's made from scratch. Just delicious, delicious food. I ashamed to say that I eat a little peach cobbler every day. It's not good. I don't recommend that. Uh,
As long
but
as you're hitting the gym and working it off, man.
yeah, I have to. I have no choice.
Yeah.
Uh, but I eat a little peach cobbler every day. Love sweet potato pie. So we do traditional down home, Southern Mississippi, Georgia type of soul food. And it's not that easy to find. It's not that prominent in California.
Yeah, that was my next question.
And so we have a large tourism clientele, and about 40% of our customers come from a distance of 50 miles or greater, which lets us know that they're coming from out of town. I mentioned I had a family there from Rhode Island yesterday, but Pennsylvania, state of Pennsylvania, Texas, we get a lot of folks who visit Southern California who want to come over and try some delicious soul food. So we not only try to make sure we serve good food, but we also try to be a welcoming entity as it relates to the city of Los Angeles and make people feel at home. And, that whole thing, that whole hospitality thing that we were talking about in the beginning of the podcast.
Man, you mix some good, genuine family, authentic hospitality with that food. It does not get any better. I will
It
go to my
works.
grave saying that. I know
It
I grew
works.
up on it. I love it. I can't eat it as much as I used to just because I got to work so much harder to work it off. But I got
Uh,
to tell you, I'm actually interested in this. Like, there's all this, whatever consternation. People are worried right now. There's a lot going on in in politics and the economy and tariffs and this, that, and the other in the market. And I would think that during times like that, like that's what you want. You want to go somewhere and eat food like that with service like that. I mean, in my mind, like that's immediately what I think because it's comfort. They call it comfort food for a reason. It's comforting, and add in some authentic service and maybe the owner stopping by. That's a great experience right now that people are probably seeking as much as they have in a while.
great example. This wasn't the greatest period in our history, but during the coronavirus, a lot of restaurants had to close, and people were seeking comfort food. They
Yeah.
wanted home cooked food because they couldn't get to the grocery store or this or that. And our restaurants never closed. We stayed open. So, and that's when our third party delivery business sort of took off. And when, because people wanted mashed potatoes for the family. They wanted fried chicken and mac and cheese and things like that. And so we, exactly what you just said, comfort food and home cooking, and everybody likes it. It doesn't matter, what your background is, what's your ethnic background or where you're from. People, Americans, and visitors, they like that comfort food. They like that home cooking, made from scratch cooking,
Yeah.
and that's why we've been able to ride out a lot of these difficulties and survive because people have to eat and they want something good to eat and something that's going to stick to their bones and fill the family and take care of the kids and all those things, and we've been able to provide that.
How is tell me about you've made some good innovative decisions and you mentioned like two kitchens and shared labor, but talk about the labor pool right now. Is it I mean it was like didn't exist during COVID, it seemed like for a little while. It's coming back, but is the generation of folks you're hiring now, you hear different things about, particularly the younger generation now. I find that there's a lot of just complete all-stars that may be younger that are coming into their first restaurant job or have been in it a little while, but there's also people that there may be fewer and further between, but I'm curious what's like out there, and because it's different in different parts of the country too.
Well, I couldn't say this in years past, but I can honestly say that I have the best team that I've ever had. Um, and I don't know if COVID is the reason for that, but my team is multi-generational. And then I mentioned that the restaurant industry is an industry of first opportunities and second chances. And so I have a number of people on my team who are working on rebuilding their lives after being incarcerated. And they are some of my best staff members and employees. And I think giving people an opportunity like that to work is a positive thing. And so we've been very successful in that category. But the young people that I have are doing great. We have a cell phone issue sometimes. Take your phone and put it in the lock. So I'm dealing with the cell phone issue. In fact, I'm gonna have a meeting on that later this week. But other than that, my young people are coming in and they don't know anything, and we're just training them to be good citizens and to provide good service and to prepare them for the next job if that should be the case. And I'm very pleased. I'm very, very pleased, and it shows in what my customers say. My customers say you have a great team. Your team, your people are very friendly. They're very courteous. They're very professional, and that's where you tell. It's not what you see, it's what your customers say. And my customers always have something positive to say. And when you can get your team to the point where, as the owner, you can walk to a table and hear something positive about your team, then you're doing something right. And so that's something that we really focus on in terms of training and retraining and customer service skills and hospitality and, having a pleasant attitude and smiling and saying hello, saying thank you, saying goodbye, all the basic things that your parents taught you when you were growing up.
The basic things that are not maybe taught as much now. The bar is, it's good and bad. The bar is so low now, I find, just in general, that if you do execute those basic things every day, I mean, really, truly basic things, but if you actually execute those every day, it blows people away because they're not used to it, and it kind of wows them and it kind of surprises them. And Greg, I'll say this. I mean, it's very clear to me, like you're coming from a place of like, you are leading by example and you are showing people, not just telling people. And that's so important in a good leader. And I'm sure that they've seen you do every job in the restaurant when needed. And man, that's very inspiring to young people. They're watching, and I mean, and do you have kids?
I do. I have a 33-year-old son, Brett, and he has a son, Vega, and I have a daughter, Alexis, who's 30, and she has a 4-month-old son, and his name is Zen. So I'm a father and a grandfather twice over.
Blessed man. You probably have, like, my kids are a little younger than yours. It took me a little while. I'm a little slow on the uptake, but I realize like what I say goes so far, but what I do goes really far because they're watching, right? And
Right.
they're also watching to see if what I say is conflicts with what I do. My guess is that you are teaching your people and saying things to your people, but they're seeing you do it. And that really is why you have such a great team, man. So I tip my hat again on that as well. That's no surprise to me.
Well, what you find and what I've found over the years is that a lot of the young people that you hire, some of the basic things that maybe you and I learned, they were never taught at home. Some of them have grew up in foster care or single parent households, and some of the basic uh, things uh, as it relates to being civil and kind, and they were just never taught. And so they come in with that deficit, and we're having to train them, say thank you, say this, say that, you can't, control your temper, control your emotions. There's a lot of that as a restaurant owner that you have to do. You're more than just the boss and a restaurant owner. Sometimes, a counselor or you're dealing with different things. And you mentioned that restaurant owners are dealing with different things, but the human aspect of things that you have to deal with also comes into play. And that's
Sure.
something that's a big part of owning a restaurant as it relates to hiring people from different backgrounds that, you often have to do things that you didn't expect to have to do, whether it be pay for a funeral or something like that. I've done all those things over the years. And, those are things that they don't tell you or teach you when you go into this business. It's just something that you kind of learn as you operate. And so, yeah, that's something that I experienced for sure.
I don't do this enough on this podcast, and I wish I would remember more, but you just said something that prompted this. Are you familiar with the Giving Kitchen?
No.
Okay. I got to give them a plug. They're out of Atlanta, but they're growing kind of nationwide. And what they do is that when a hospitality worker is in some sort of financial crisis, uh, you know, a single mom of three, has two restaurant jobs, breaks her leg, has to get a pin put in, doesn't have health insurance, going to get evicted. You call, like in the past, a lot of times you call the owner like, hey, can I borrow some money or whatever? Or you're talking about paying for a funeral, which is what prompted this. Well, Giving Kitchen, that's what they do. They came from hospitality and they said, there's so many great people in this industry and they're so important to their communities. But a lot of times they're one paycheck away from eviction, or they're one accident away from, a bankruptcy because of medical debt or whatever. So what Giving Kitchen does is the Giving Kitchen. I think it's givingkitchen.org, but you go to them and you go, here's my case, like here's what happened. And then they've raised like tens of millions of dollars over the last decade, and they help hospitality workers in crisis. So I just try to give them a plug when I can. I like people to know about them because it's just such a wonderful organization. Recommend you check them out. If you have any interest in getting to know them, I know the CEO there really well. She's great. She's the founder, and they're just doing awesome work. And I'm real proud of them.
Uh, I would love to connect with them. We have a similar operation here in the state of California. It's called Restaurant Cares, and they do some of the exact same things that you just mentioned. My friend Alicia is the director of Restaurant Cares, and it's operated through the state of California Restaurant Association, and they do some of the same things, grants and things like that to restaurant employees who are in times of crisis and things like that. And so it's a very similar organization. And people don't know, at least in the state of California, the restaurant industry is the largest provider of sales tax revenue to the state of California, and probably in other states as well. The restaurant industry, like I said, hires folks for their first jobs, and it's a very good giving industry that does a lot of good. And so I'm not surprised about the organization you just mentioned, and something similar here in California. And I'm sure the restaurants industry has that type of organization all over the country. We probably did some more research on it. So Restaurant Owners Give, that's what we do. In times of crisis, we stand up and we do what we can. During the coronavirus, restaurants received thousands and millions of dollars of donations from various individuals that just said, here's $1,000. Just give somebody free meals.
Yeah.
Here, feed the first responders. People we never met, people we didn't know, were sending restaurants money and saying, here, this is the way I want to give, feed people. And so we were able to go to hospitals and provide meals and feed seniors and things like that, because we have that expertise. If we don't have the money, we at least have the expertise to go out and to do what we do best, and that's feed people. So I'd like to say right now, I want to thank the general public for helping the restaurant industry, for holding us in such high regard, and for supporting us and helping us to support others.
Well, and you do, and we'll wrap with that, is that you do support others, and you've mentioned this a couple of times. It is a great place for a first job. You learn so much. You're going to learn skills. I've had it, my first two kids, and I'm going to have this third one do it too, work in a restaurant, because I believe that it's like the most diverse set of skills you can learn. And frankly, when my daughter was a hostess a couple years ago, and she's, grew up on an iPhone, and like, it's kind of funny because it's an iPhone, but they never talk on the phone. And she's like having to answer the phone, and she's like all stressed about it. I'm like, good. Like, you need to learn to talk on the phone. Like, that's a good thing. So she learned all these skill sets that were outside of her comfort zone. And you get that in restaurants. And what you also get is people that have a second chance. And I commend you for that. And I commend this industry for that. There's a guy, I'd like to get your address. I want to send you a copy of a book called Say Grace by Steve Palmer. Are you familiar with Steve?
No, I'm not.
So he owns the Indigo Road Hospitality Group out of Charleston. In like 15 years, he's grown that to like 30 something restaurants and like six
Wow.
hotels. But Steve was a troubled youth in Florida, broken home, on drugs. The only place he could get a job, got a job at a restaurant, worked up through the restaurants, fell out, wound up homeless on the streets of Atlanta, strung out on heroin. And he's very honest with this story. So it's not like, and then the only place he could get work was in the restaurant industry. And he got sober 20 something years ago. And now he's got this phenomenal, company that he built. But what other industry could you do that in? Like, there isn't one, and that's what's so amazing about this industry is that talk about like a diverse workforce of people from all walks of life and all races and ethnicities and socioeconomic backgrounds. And it's like, there is nowhere that is more of a melting pot than restaurants. It is a great thing. And it's also to your family's history. And, we'll kind of tie this back to what we started talking about. We're in this awesome country. You have these opportunities in this country. If you want to take a risk, which we kind of built this place on, and go and hang a shingle out, it ain't easy. It takes a lot of risk. It does. And some of them don't work, but you do have that opportunity. And with a lot of hard work and dedication and honesty and integrity and authenticity to your values, to your staff's values, to your customers, you can do it. And in this industry gives you more opportunities, I think, than any to do.
I agree. I often tell young people that working in the restaurant industry will teach you how to communicate with people, how to talk to people, how to provide service. You learn about money and how to deal with money and how to count money, how to set up, how to clean, how to break down. It just teaches you so many skills that will stay with you for the rest of your life. So it's a great industry to start in, whether it's at a fast food chain or at a sit-down restaurant. It is the industry where a lot of us, myself included, got our first start as it relates to working, going into the workforce.
Absolutely. Uh, I hope I hope I haven't taken too much of your time, Greg. I cannot thank you enough. This has been such an enjoyable conversation and so educational and inspiring to me. And I just truly, truly appreciate the opportunity. And I appreciate the folks at DoorDash, for getting us connected for this, because it's been amazing.
Me too. Your questions were great, and I love it. And I'll be listening to your podcast going forward. And just thank you for being so gracious and having me as your guest. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Absolutely. Thank you. And if I'd love to get I want to mail you a copy of this book. I think you'll really enjoy it.
I love it. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Greg, have a great day. Tell your team thank you for sparing you for a little while for this opportunity.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
All right. See ya.
Okay.